Welcome back to the Mxedberries podcast. In this episode, it's just me and Ashraf, and we're actually going to talk about a more serious topic in comparison to what we normally talk about. We're going to be talking about the Shamima Begum case in the UK. Now, for a little bit of a background on what the case is about, I'm just going to read an extract from the BBC website as to why this person is in the news lately. So, Shamima Begum, as some of you may know, one of three East London schoolgirls who travelled to Syria to join the so-called ISIS group, so Islamic State group, is set to find out whether her British citizenship should be restored. Miss Begum, now 20, travelled to Syria in February 2015, so that was 5 years ago when she was 15, and lived under ISIS rules for more than 3 years before she was found, 9 months pregnant in a Syrian refugee camp in February last year. Then Home Secretary Sajid Javid revoked her British citizenship on national security grounds later that month. Miss Begum took legal action against the Home Office, claiming the decision was unlawful because it rendered her stateless and exposed her to a real risk of death or inhuman and degrading treatment. I'll leave it there because I'm sure a lot of people that would be listening to this do already know. If you don't, you can quickly do a quick Google search as to what the case is about. But in layman's terms, it's a 15-year-old girl who was groomed into leaving her family home and catching a flight with three with
Hmm.
two other girls from East London to
Groomed,
basically
groomed is the disputed subject, though, isn't it?
yeah.
That's what people
Yeah,
debate.
some may say groomed. Yeah, exactly. Some may say groomed. Some may say old enough
Or
to know.
she always had it in her. That's what they'd say.
Of course, of course they would say that. Yeah. Um, but yeah, and so lately there has been some new developments. Do you want to talk us through that, Ashraf?
Yeah, I was just reading on it today. So after Sajid Javid, that coconut, decided to revoke her citizenship. Um, the she then sought, obviously, legal representation to appeal against that on various grounds. One of them, well, the first one was actually the main case now, the main appeal related to her actually coming to this country to actually fight her case. Um, and so, although she's lost her citizenship technically, she's supposed to lose her British citizenship, she's still got Bangladeshi citizenship. So they're not disputing that in the appeal, because you know how UK citizens that are Bangladeshi, they have Bangladeshi citizenship up until the age of 21. They
All
can
right.
extend it. Yeah, they can extend it if they were actively like trying to renew it and stuff like that. But she didn't, so that's why Bangladesh are like, yeah, no, we're not taking her in. So they're not disputing that because there's no point. Because if they dispute her Bangladeshi citizenship as well, Bangladesh will say she's not a citizen. And so what happens there is she loses all of her citizenship status, so she becomes essentially stateless. And if you are stateless, that means you have no rights. There is no government there to step in and protect you and enforce your rights. So they're kind of holding off on that, I think, as a last resort if anything goes wrong. Um, the second ground that they're appealing, that they've essentially requested via judicial review, is to ensure that the immigration panel, it's like a special immigration panel in this country. It's quite weird how it works. Uh,
Hmm.
to review her case with like a special consideration on how depriving her of her citizenship will breach her human rights, specifically Article 2 and Article 3 of the Convention on Human Rights, which are, because I've forgotten now, let me just double check. I have the document right here. So Article 2 relates to the right to life. So obviously, if Bangladesh don't take her in and the UK don't want her, she'll essentially rot away in some camp somewhere, which is, just awful. And Article 3 is the prohibition of torture, but that also includes uh, no one shall be subjected to inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. So that's basically what her lawyers are fighting right now. as well as having a fair treatment in a trial. That's the third limb of the test, the appeal. So they're trying to fight on that. So that was decided, and the courts essentially said, yeah, no, she has leave to enter the UK to fight her case, because as should anyone defending their citizenship should.
Yeah.
So on the legal grounds, yeah, she has the right to appeal, but then the next step is, does she have the right to come back to this country, considering everything that she has, done and also kind of sacrificed now?
Yeah. I think that is what is the most difficult question, or in some cases, the most easiest question for people in the UK is
Mm,
if someone leaves the country, how often is it the case that that person is leaving the country to basically be
yeah, exactly.
joining a extremist group? And how often does
Because
someone that leaves for an extremist group try and come back into the country and gain citizenship again?
I think returnees, there's like a whole different law set up on it. I didn't do too much reading up on it, but it's actually very strict. The UK has very strict anti-terror laws like that. They even have you can get indicted on charges just for, if you say wanted to enter Syria, they could arrest you for that via Istanbul. At one point, they could have arrested you and said, no, no, we know what you're trying to do. Why else would you be going to Syria, a war-torn country, via Istanbul, clearly to fight in some capacity? So they would be able to arrest you at the airport and detain you for
I think that makes sense though. Like, what other reason could someone have to want to go to that?
yeah, exactly. I understand that completely. But the thing about Shamima, like, from a human rights, when you talk about Article 2 and 3, the prohibition of torture, the maintaining the ensuring that her right to life is protected, depriving it is depriving her of citizenship in this situation is definitely a breach. I can't see what else it could be other than that, because
Hmm.
you have to
Going
protect.
back to what you said previously, about she's technically classed as a citizen of Bangladesh,
Mm,
by descent. Is that something for anyone that has any sort of ethnic background to be linked to Bangladesh? So if you have parents that are Bangladeshi, does
mhm.
that mean their child that was born in this country would technically be classed as a citizen of
Yeah, I think
Bangladesh?
that's how it works, but it's up to the age of 21. So like they're like, yeah, you're fine. You have dual citizenship, but then once you turn that age, if there was no attempt of you to actually engage and use your citizenship, then yeah, we're gonna they essentially just, it expires. It's like a
It's
license
like a
almost.
visa.
Yeah, it just expires. And Shamima, for example, she never went to Bangladesh, not ever. So in that situation, she's literally got no one. If she loses the UK, that's it. She's done. She's just gonna she'll be homeless, stateless until she dies.
Is there any mention in the news about what her family's thoughts are about her returning?
I can't remember exactly, but I remember hearing that her family were surprised that she left. I might be wrong.
Surprised she left or surprised she wanted to come back?
I think surprised she left. I don't know. I can't remember exactly about that, because I just focus specifically on her. I don't think her family. It is her. The family's irrelevant because her rights are just hers. I think the UK, what they've done is set a dangerous precedent here by trying to deprive her of her citizenship.
Yeah.
I mean, think
It's
about
very interesting because, I mean, there's two sides to the coin. So you have the one side that at the age of 15, you don't really, you could argue you don't really know how the world works, or
Mm,
you don't basically have any control over how you want your life to pan out. I mean, you have little control. So being being impressioned or influenced by someone else is very easy.
Mm. Yeah, of course. Especially when she's probably from we don't even know her home life. She could be a very vulnerable girl at the time. Of course, very stupid, naive. We can all admit that. Like, we're not daft. We're not stupid. What she done was wrong, and she knows that based on her, like, that interview she had. But even that interview, yeah, the way she was talking, I just thought she's really exactly how I thought she'd be. Like, she talked like a kid with her logic with everything. Like, the way she was speaking on camera is like, it wasn't mature or anything. She's just like, yeah, I want to come back, as if she was on holiday somewhere. That's
I
for
think
me
I
as
think
someone who
people
doesn't
could
understand her.
I think people could mistake that for not being remorseful.
Yeah, but I just thought she just has seen enough shit that she's like, yeah, I just want to come back now. She doesn't care about that.
I
Like, it's
think
easy
what
to.
what if the narrative was she came back and she was crying and well very apparent and apologetic? Would that have had a different impact to the
I
response
think,
to the
I think,
case?
yeah, I think definitely. I mean, whoever interviewed or arranged it, they should have told her to be more like, regretful, remorseful, all that kind of stuff, just from a PR point of view,
But
because
does that
it
need to
would
be
have.
told, to someone that's looking for a favor from the UK government?
I say, I don't know. I don't like the use of the word favor. I don't think it's a favor to have your rights enforced, regardless of what she done. She's a criminal. Fine, in your eyes, she's a criminal. In my eyes, she's a criminal. But she should be tried by UK courts, by the UK government. They shouldn't have just dumped her on the streets, for the sake of like making leaving a message for everyone else saying, "Oh yeah, if you go to Syria, yeah, you're done." They
Hmm.
shouldn't have used her as like some way to teach a lesson to the the other Muslim youths of today, like some sort of warning, some sort of deterrent, because it just doesn't work like that. They're not addressing the main issues with radicalization, grooming. She could have been the perfect opportunity for the British government to intervene and be like, and just ask the question, why does this one girl hate us so much to the point where she fly off to another country to go, you know, be an ISIS bride for some grown man?
Hmm.
It's a worry. Like, they didn't consider. They were like, why? They never asked why. They were just like,
But
what could we
then
do?
you also would have people that are saying, I mean, if the UK did allow her in straight away, you'd also
Mm,
have people saying, oh, so it's that easy for someone to literally join an extremist organization that is so against this country and everything
mm,
this country, in quotation marks, stands for. If it's so
mm,
easy to go and join a group like that and then come back to welcome arms, what
mm.
kind of example is that setting?
That's it. It's not like she would have just come back and she'd be just down in the butcher's getting some, chicken and cooking meals for her family. She'd be interrogated. It would be very intense because she would have had key information against a lot of, militants. Yeah, within
Yeah.
the ISIS group. I mean, her husband was one. She would have been detained for God knows how long, and then she would have been put on that prevent program. Even though, well, it's not really prevent anymore, but more like de-escalate. But
More like exploit.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, but it's not like she would have come back and yeah, everything's back to normal now. We know you just went on a little holiday, just discovering yourself. Nah, it's not like that. That's not how national security works. I know, like the media and the public would have assumed that would be the thing, and there's a lot of fear tactics in play. But at the end of the day, she left as a 15-year-old. I think that interview is when she was how old? Not even that old. Like, she
20.
was 20. Like, what could a 20-year-old girl do? Like, there were talks of like, oh, she'll help radicalize everyone else, but why would she do that? Do you think she'll be given access to people like that? It doesn't work. It's like, that's not possible. she's essentially a criminal. She'll be tried. She'll be in jail somewhere. She'll be she'll be in a prison cell somewhere waiting her trial. That's what they should have done instead of leaving her in a camp and saying, it's not my problem.
So you'd be happy with you'd say it's fair and it'd be a justice for her to come back to the UK, even if it meant she's in prison for the rest of her life.
But not for the rest of her life. I just don't think someone who's been groomed to that extent can be punished so severely. I think she's suffered enough, man. She was
So
groomed.
she's a victim.
I think so, of course. She was targeted. It's not like she came across. She just happened to bump into a terrorist on the street. She was groomed online by some evil man.
I think there's a lot of factors involved when it comes to things like that. I mean,
I think I don't know, man. I know I don't want to always talk about racial stuff, but I know it all adds up, man. When you talk about that whole Me Too movement, women getting exploited and stuff like that, that applies in many contexts. It doesn't just apply in like Hollywood, for example, where women are getting exploited for their work they do and this that. It's also people like Shamima Begum who are basically at the bottom of society, and they're just getting targeted by the same manipulative men. And her manipulator turned out to be a terrorist who exploited essentially her weak faith. And
that's a very interesting way of putting it.
It doesn't matter what the core point I'm saying is that she was manipulated into doing and believing in something that wasn't it. Like there was some end goal to her accepting the situation, just like how those women who were essentially coerced into sleeping with like Harvey Weinstein, their end goal was, getting that role, getting that job. It's all the same, but the manipulation is what starts it. That relationship dynamic is there, but what's worse is that she's a kid, but she's been punished so heavily by the government, a government that actually still owes a duty of care towards her kid, by the way, because she still is a UK citizen. Like the order's made, that's what she's appealing. So she's still got her citizenship, but she's got a kid, which means what? That kid is a UK citizen as well. So are they just gonna let a British kid die just because his mum happened to be married to a militant a while back? What did that kid do?
That's more of a moral dilemma, when you say.
Yeah.
Because politically, with everything that she's been involved in, how many 15-year-olds would up and leave their town or city, let alone the country?
Not many, of course. But that's the questions you gotta ask is, do we just let them, do we just ignore them? Do we just let them die? I think you judge a government by its ability to protect those most vulnerable. She would have been one of the most vulnerable in society. But it's not just the government. That's another point we've got to make. We've got to ask, where was her family support? Why weren't they aware of this kind of stuff? What about the Muslim community, like the local mosque, all this stuff? Why were they not able to pick up on this stuff? Her school must have been able to pick up on it as well.
Do you think the family would have had no clue, no idea whatsoever?
I think I don't know, man. Like it depends. How much did your parents know about you when you were a kid, really?
No, I guess you're right.
Also, you're gonna just admit to your parents, like, yeah, I'm chatting to this one guy. He says he could take me to, like, Syria. Obviously, deep down, I think she would have known this is still bad, but I mean, there's a reason why she done it so, abruptly and tried to do it as quickly and quietly as she could.
Yeah.
There's still lawlessness about it. It's still wrong. The idea of joining a military group. So again, the whole point is, do we let her go? even though the UK has allowed many ISIS fighters to return to the UK, do we let her go just because the public at the time was really pissed off and said good riddance? Because that's what I think they done.
I think there's definitely pressure from the public because it's become such an pardon the pun, overblown. Well, actually, that's in poor
Mm.
taste. Basically, it's a very public case. Let's just say,
Yeah.
you know, most of the people from the UK know about this case, and because it's in the eye of the media, the
Mm.
government would naturally have an inclination to please the population, basically. The majority would be saying she shouldn't be allowed back in the country. She forsake the country. She was part of a group that wanted to attack the country and went against everything it stood for.
Mm.
Now she thinks it's easy to just come back and act like everything's, all fine and dandy.
Yeah.
And
No, I get
then
that. I get that
and
completely because I remember when I first found out about this, I was pissed because I was just thinking, like, Muslims have it hard enough in this country, and now we've got our fucking like these young girls running off with these fucking like terrorists, and you're just like, really? Like, this is the time you want to do this now? Like, I was fuming. I was like, yeah, don't bring her back. Let her to rot. But then I just sat back and deed like this isn't right. Like at the end
there's
of
a
the
lot
day,
of
she's
manipulation involved.
yeah. Because like, how fucked do you need to be?
I mean, even if she was allowed back in the country, I mean, there would be people arguing, you're working every day, you're paying your taxes, you look at your pay slip and you're like, fuck me, I'm getting
Mm,
absolutely fucked by all these taxes. Your
mm,
taxes are going towards what? Schools, you know, everything basically that
mm,
isn't paid for, like jails as well. So you're telling me you're bringing back this ex-terrorist, stick her in a jail cell, something
mm.
that you've paid for out of your own taxes.
Yeah, but then again, like the counterpoint is they've been doing that anyway. Like I said, like the government's accepted like a number of previous fighters already in the country, so they've done it before. Why didn't they make a big deal about it now? Oh, I mean back then.
Yeah, because it's not under scrutiny of the media.
Yeah, exactly. But even besides, so like, but then you got to make the argument. So her life is now disposable because you don't want to pay a little more tax. I mean, you're paying a lot of fucking tax anyway in this country. To God knows what. I mean, the government just blew over 150 million pounds on a PPE contracting deal to one of its dodgy ministers, and then that company ended up buying incorrect PPE equipment. So that's more taxpayer money gone. We could go like all day back and forth about wasted taxpayer money, but bringing back a British citizen to the UK to try her for crimes is the rule of law. That's what it is. You have to respect that. Both as a citizen, as a lawyer, as a politician. Otherwise, the minute you let that crumble, you set dangerous precedents. I mean, prior to I think 2017, the UK only what's it called, deprived citizenship of from their citizens only like a number of times, and then ever since it's 2017, I think in 2017 alone there were over 100 incidents where they deprived citizenship. That is dangerous. Like that's crazy. That's essentially telling someone, yeah, we don't want you, and you've got nowhere to go. We're not going to protect your rights anymore for you. We're not going to enforce anything. If something happens to you abroad, you're not our problem. You're alone. That's crazy. When you have an issue when you're on holiday, you can go to an embassy and they could
Yeah.
help sort you out because that's there. Shamima's got no one. She's got that. She's got that camp in Iraq or somewhere wherever she was found. But that's a British citizen, so you have to ask, what's your worth as Asian guys? That's quite a worry, though, isn't it? That's what they're
I
saying. The minute you
mean,
step line, it's a danger.
how hard is it to just, not get involved into things that could potentially lose your citizenship? You know,
Mm.
how hard
That's
is it to just go along as a in
and
quotation marks, as a normal
just
person?
yeah, and not run off with ISIS. Yeah, obviously, I accept that, but it is it just worries me how easy it is for them to pull the trigger without actually, taking into account everything. Like, it's crazy. But then another element, like we touched upon it earlier, is like the opportunity to understand radicalization. They could have, instead of swatting her away and saying she's a lost cause, they could have brought her home, and they could have essentially delved deeper into why she thinks what she thinks. If they understood the why, they'd be able to find a solution. But that kind of practical talk it's impossible when you've got so many angry people in the country.
With this narrative, it sounds like you're pointing towards the fact that she genuinely does want to come back and doesn't have any ulterior motives.
I think she knows she made a mistake. I think after the death of like whatever her husband at the time, and what was it? I think she lost a couple kids as well.
Mm.
I think that's a lot of trauma for anyone to go through, like ignoring the terrorism. But losing your family, essentially, that's a lot of trauma to go through. But to do so in some camp somewhere where you're fearing a bomb's going to be dropped on you, or you're never going to see your actual family ever again, like, that's a lot to worry about. I don't think she's got any ulterior motive.
So as a
I'll be
last
honest.
resort, she's realised, you know what, it's safe for me to come
Yeah,
back to the UK.
and even if her motive alone is she wants to give her baby a better quality of life, I think that's enough. That's someone who's finally thinking rationally, and I think that should be upheld.
That's a very interesting take. Not a very popular take amongst the UK population,
Yeah,
as most people would agree, but it's also a very morally acceptable, you could say,
mm,
take on the
yeah.
whole
I think
situation.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people in the legal world would agree that, well, if you ignore the emotional side of it, because we're all pissed, we're just like, fuck, why is this bloody Bengali girl deciding to run off with a bunch of like terrorists? Why would you do that? That's so stupid. You should have known better. But if you ignore all of that and you think about just the rational legal side of it, at the end of the day, she's British. Yes, you've revoked her citizenship, but that's inconsistent and it's a bit excessive compared to what we've seen previously. So why now? That's the only thing. I just don't want her to be used as some sort of, oh yeah, we're going to teach a lesson. It's the only thing
An
that bothers me.
example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be like that. That's not how the law is meant to be used. If you want to teach good lessons, you do that through rehabilitation programs. Like there's a big, like, oh, let's get offenders and stuff in prison, teach them good skills. We got to understand their needs, a lot more holistic services. The same could be said for these people as well who think like this. And I don't see why not. Why can't we find out why terrorists think the way they do? Obviously you've got some nutcases who you just can't ever rationalize with. I think, like, like the genuine fucking terrorists. You know what I mean?
A genuine terrorist,
The genuine terrorists. Like, you're like, yeah, okay, mate, you're gonna
as
blow me
opposed
up.
to a rational terrorist.
Yeah, 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 exactly. I feel like the government's knocking on my door right now, saying, "What the fuck are you saying, man?" But what I mean is those who are like, I was reading an article by this
Basically, those who have a chance
those who are
of
soft. He described it as soft, not the hardened like extremists, but the ones who are soft, who are just like still early in their thing. They're just questioning things, like that kind of stuff. He said we need to stop going after the soft ones because that's different. You can always do that over time. It's the hardened ones you need to go over because they're the main worry in this community. But someone like Shamima would fall under the soft because of how young she was, how she was manipulated, and she would have been just so easy to just like be like, yeah, no, this is wrong. These are the actual teachings. I mean, I don't really know them myself, but I know damn well no one's telling. Really, no one.
that
No
will
people
be
telling us.
a great topic of discussion for another episode. I'm not gonna lie to
Yeah.
you. I don't think we have enough time to actually delve into that, or the right
Uh,
people as well.
oh yeah, for sure. I don't know enough of that, man. Like, I'm not even gonna pretend.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but the whole like I don't know. I was waffling a bit, but the whole like there's an emphasis on rehabilitation in the prison system. I don't think she's excluded from that. I think we could have used that. We could have found ways. I mean, they tried to do that with the prevent strategy. I was reading, like I was saying, I was reading that article. He was saying, yeah, like we just try to challenge their thinking. Uh, it, the more extreme they are, the higher the intervention is. Like if they get scholars involved to, question them, to explain things to them. But I'm like, why does it have to be only a prevent level? Why can't it be once we've established that she's held us belief, she's tried to put them into practice by going abroad, this, that. Why can't we then try to bring her back? Because I think that would do so much better than because then you could say to any like it kind of shows the potential terrorist, which sounds kind of weird. Look, these people all like had that mode in them. They all thought about it, but they didn't. At the end of the day, they came back from the edge.
They were rehabilitated.
Yeah, they instead of worrying about, oh yeah, everyone hates me, like this government is awful, they were able to rationalize everything in a more meaningful and productive way than, yeah, I'm just gonna go like, join a very very violent group. But I think we're a long way from that.
Yeah. I don't think, that's definitely something that can't be done overnight. And it would take, I mean, this case being the prime example, it would take something in the scrutiny of the public for the government to be able to show its cards and be like, this is how we're going to deal with this from now on.
It won't change because right now, I mean, the way to ever test if anything will change is by looking at where the funding is. Right now, funding is primarily on prevent, which like theoretically makes a lot of sense, but in practice, it's been criticized a lot because it's quite discriminatory. It's quite it's a bit dodgy. Like I've never liked the idea of prevent because it's essentially trying to criminalize people before they've actually committed a criminal act. So they could
profiling. It's basically racially profiling people.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's like thought profiling them because you could have these thoughts, but you could never actually act on them. But because you once said something in passing, suddenly the teacher at your school, like imagine some of the Denby teachers, you know who I'm on about, the ones who are definitely low key racist. Like they could literally just make a little comment. You can make a little comment and they'd refer you to the program, and then suddenly you're
under the microscope, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I never liked it because it's a bit invasive.
It's definitely worth investing in different approaches to see which would have the best outcome.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, yeah, in regards to this whole Shamima Begum malarkey, despite me obviously questioning everything, I do still morally think and ethically think that she should be allowed in, go through some reform.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to make an example out of someone by law because that's not a very consistent approach. If you know what I mean. It's not.
Yeah,
I don't think that's justice. But yeah, I mean, there definitely does need to be something that needs to happen in regards to stopping these things from happening in the first place. Whether that's in.
What do you think? Like, what would be your approach if you were to like, if Shamima didn't?
I think the problem starts.
If we ignore her and you were just put in like a position of power to try change things for the better. Let's say it should be the whole Shamima situation that exists. What would you do?
If I was in charge of the case, I would first I'd want to hear what the public has to say, not ask them what they want to say about it, but hear what they have to say first. just to get a gist and an idea of exactly what everyone thinks in this country, what the thought
How would
process
you
is.
go about doing that?
Well, it would be in media, wouldn't it? It would all be published everywhere.
Yeah,
This is a massive
reactions.
case. Yeah, exactly. It would be a massive thing. What I would do would be I would allow her back in the country on the basis that she goes through some rehabilitation program. I wouldn't allow her to have any custody over her child,
Mm.
or at least for a limited period of time until she's better.
Yeah, because there's always that worry she's never actually, you know,
If you can
safe.
do that, I mean, there are far less things a mother could do to lose their children to social services, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, Another thing is I would try and implement some kind of strategy where in schools, educational institutes, teachers are trained or someone that's specifically trained comes in to hold a kind of meeting or a support group just for parents to find out what their parenting is like at home. Because in my opinion, I think it starts off in the household. If you don't have the right relationship with your parents, you're doing things like this behind their back,
Yeah.
talking to old men, being groomed, being influenced, not being open with your parents. Next thing you know, you're running away.
Mm.
That's where I think the problem is. I mean, there are so many kids out there that, aren't saints, or parents out there that aren't the best parents, but their kids don't run off to, another country and join a extremist group.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's to say that they're still not doing things that aren't socially acceptable.
Mm.
That is what my approach would be.
It's tight though, isn't it? Like enforcing that is so difficult because you never really know what goes on at home until you see the end result, really.
There's pros and cons to everything. You can nitpick anything. There won't be anything that's a foolproof plan.
That's tight though.
So
I don't even know what
it's
to
very
say.
difficult.
Like I can understand both sides, man. Like I can understand people not wanting her back because they're like, that oh you came to this country, blah blah blah. You had all this opportunity, but you wanted to go back to some fucking primitive state where you got to fight to survive. You chose that, and now you want to come back because you realize you don't want to fight.
Hmm.
Like I can
Well,
fully.
with that question on everyone that's listening, with that question on your mind, if you want to let us know what you would do in that situation, let us know. I think we could go on about this for hours. We
Definitely.
should, yeah, we should probably end it there. It's a very interesting topic, and it's a
Yeah.
never-ending topic of discussion as well. I don't think, as sad as it is to say, I don't think this is something that could have a definitive answer anytime soon.
Mm. Well, hopefully, the courts will decide on it soon. We'll find out.
I mean the basis behind the whole action, not the actual case itself specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. Well, we'll end it there, and we'll talk to everyone on the next episode. So.
Yep. See ya.